Thank you for joining me for this interactive discussion about how to change obstacles into opportunities. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce you to our community. Some of our community members may not know you as well as I do, and I wanted to just give them a little bit of background about your education, your profession, and what we'll speak about today. For those of you who don't know Dr. Stela, she was born in Bulgaria and has been living in Italy for the past 30 years. The first 10 years of her life were spent in Milan, where she studied and graduated in psychology at the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart in Milan. She continued her studies in Rome, which is what brought her to us, where she specialized in strategic psychotherapy. She then went on to continue her training in Ericksonian hypnosis, legal psychology, effective communication techniques, just to name a few. In addition to this, she dedicates her time in helping healthcare professionals manage burnout, and she offers psychological support and grief counseling at the Santa Maria Goretti Hospital in Latina, as well as the organ donation coordination, UOCs, emergency room neurology, reanimation, and intensive care. She's a freelancer for clinical activities, and she organizes training, psychotherapy, and counseling. She commits herself to creating events dedicated to personal development and the improvement of life in general. When she's not doing that, she's an avid reader. She reads over 200 books per year, and she also enjoys art, music, and travel. Very well-rounded individual, and we love having her as a board member of the American International Club of Rome, and appreciate the fact that she has dedicated her time to us today to give us some tips on how to manage obstacles. Dr. Stela, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Silvia. Thank you for this beautiful presentation. Thank you for inviting me. And let me say something about you for those who don't know who you are. Silvia is a member of the board director of American International Club of Rome. Her dream, among others, was to live in Rome. And as an adult, she decided to make it happen. But she fell in love and followed the man who became later her husband to the United Arab Emirates and stayed there for 7 years, and then moved to Singapore for other 5 years. And recently she came back to Rome finally for us and now she has immersed herself in her work as an English coach to professional, which is very good in that. And she's is an avid volunteer and dedicate her time to help the well-being and treatment of the animals and support the performing arts and promotes small business owners in our community. She holds American and Italian cultures, tradition and perseveration of historical sites close to her heart. Since she joined the club, she has been instrumental on organizing events and supporting every activity of our club and doing her best to improve our community. So we're very grateful about that because she is so precious for all of us. And I thoroughly enjoy working with her, and I'm happy to have her as a member of American International Club of Rome.
Thank you, Dr. Stela. Thank you for that introduction. I'd like to start this conversation by asking you a question. Why did you choose this topic, and why is it important now?
Because now we live in a particular moment, Silvia, that took everybody that put everybody in a very new situation, very hard situation for most of us, and I think it's very important to know how to face it, to find some strategy to feel better and to control better what happened around us. So I think this topic can be useful for our community.
I find that in this period, our emotions have a lot to do with how we view our situation. I've noticed just by observing people that are in the supermarket or at the pharmacy, tension is very high. People are stressed, very nervous, a little bit agitated. Why is that?
Because when we don't know what happens around us, our emotion rise and we don't feel comfortable. Usually we feel okay when we know what happens around us. But if the situation is new and critical, this put us in a very uncomfortable mood. And for that reason, it's important to learn how to manage our emotion. And there is a very interesting book about that from Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence. That it's very good. That he explained that how we can manage our emotion. It's very good book about that. But we can say something about it. Just to focus, to control better what we feel, and try to silence our emotions, keep us more open what happens around, and give us a possibility to control better the situation. If we don't control our emotion, the emotion take control of our life.
Absolutely. Dr. Stela, before we started the conversation, we were speaking privately, you and you mentioned a quote from Marcus Aurelius that I thought would be interesting to mention. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I would love if you read it.
I'd be happy to. So Dr. Stella had mentioned a quote from Marcus Aurelius that I wanted to share with everyone that is very meaningful. Our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions. Because we can accommodate and adapt. The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. A famous quote by Marcus Aurelius.
Almost 2000 years ago.
It's still relevant now.
You see, and I take from that quote, I take the opportunity to put this discussion, because it's very actual now. It's useful to think about it. And the impediment to action, advance the action, you see, we always find another way to try to go during our life, and find a new way to see the obstacles and transform the obstacles and new meaning.
When we're facing obstacles, how should we approach them? What should we do first?
You know, every obstacle is unique to each of us, but the response is different. Somebody can confuse, somebody helpless, depressed, anger, but it's very important to face with calm and focus on the situation from objective point of view. Don't stay inside the situation, but just take some distance from what's happened, and try to understand if there is something you can do, or there is something you can change in that situation. And yeah.
So it sounds like emotions are very important when dealing with obstacles.
Yeah, because without controlling the action, the emotion can take control of our life, and we are totally paralyzed from them. And so we have to choose to know better who we are, and develop a capacity to manage our emotion, and take them silence when we need to be more rational, because the emotion is our irrational part, but we need to understand what happens with our rational mind. So we have to stay calm and understand what happens, to try to find another perspective to see what's happened. So it's very important to manage our emotion.
Sure. The reason I find it interesting to speak about emotions specifically is because I found it difficult to manage emotions when I was dealing with the unexpected. So the first time I went grocery shopping after 3 weeks of quarantine, I started to get very anxious, very concerned about what I was going to find the minute I walked outside my doors. What was the situation going to be in a public place? How were the other people going to behave? All of these things were things that were out of my control. What suggestions do you have when we're dealing with things out of our control?
The first thing I choose to do is to see the situation for what is it. So I try to be objective. Then I try to inform myself what it's necessary to dealing with the situation. So I have to wear mask or gloves or something like that. I have to stay in line. I have to, and I inform myself to have more information to deal with the situation. And if I feel some fear or I'm worried, that's okay. It's okay because it's a new situation. But I immediately change that in something good. So I try to focus myself on something can make me feel better. So I know if I focus on the bad things, that doesn't help myself to do better in that situation. So I focus on something good.
So it sounds like your suggestion is to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot control.
You remember the Serenity Prayer?
I do actually. The Serenity Prayer states, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Right.
Something that we have learned when we were children, and although we try to apply it in our daily lives, often it happens that we try to control too much. As adults, we try to control more things in the interest of protecting the ones we love. So we have husbands, we have wives, we have children, we have parents, and we try to control things in a way that extends our concern towards the people we care about. What comments can you make about how we try to control too much?
Yeah, because we feel more secure when we control the situation. So it's normal to try to control the situation, but it's very important to be objective. So it's not all the situation, it's not pleasant. So sometimes can happen, life it's like this. Sometimes can happen that there is not so pleasure situation. And we have to accept that and try to move forward from that situation, not to remain paralyzed, but okay, it's bad situation, just like that. Can I do something? What about what I can do about this? I can manage better my emotion. I can move from this. I can choose a different perspective. I can give a different meaning. But okay, it's supposed to be difficult sometimes, you know. The life it's not good or bad, it's just life, and life flowing, it's a process, and yeah, we have to be aware.
So your suggestion is to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot.
Yes, and there is another things I want to say because I find it very usual. Usually people take themselves very seriously. It's don't work very much if you take you seriously. Sometimes you can, yeah, it's like Nietzsche says. I can take this from Nietzsche. Don't take yourself so seriously because this puts you in a corner and you can feel bad.
Could you give me an example of how someone can change an obstacle into an opportunity?
I can give my example. You see, I try to speak my best English. I try to improve myself, but I'm very embarrassed when I have to speak in English. But this doesn't stop me to take the opportunity to improve myself. So I accept immediately when you ask me to do this because I know this gives me a new challenge, and the challenge put me in a situation that I can improve myself, and I like it. It's hard, it's not so easy. I had difficulty to find the right word, but yeah, I go through it and improve myself.
What about in the example that I gave about preparing myself personally to go to the supermarket? How could I view that as an opportunity? I was crippled by my emotion, afraid to go out because I didn't know how to control the unexpected.
You can focus on the best, the good things in that situation. You have to go because you need something. Maybe you can think, I can buy a fish, prepare a beautiful dinner for me and my husband, or just think to take something you love, and this can make you feel better. Just focus on something
Nutella.
you like.
I can buy Nutella.
For example, you can focus on the Nutella if you and think that this can make you feel better. For example, or you can focus on what's happening, just to learn around how life is changed. It's interesting if you try to see like an observer from outside. Just think, I am here, observe what's happening. You can you can find some interesting around to see how people manage the situation, and can be funny. Usually I observe a lot when I'm in the new situation. The first thing I do, I observe and take information from the situation, and then I formulate in my mind some perspective, some idea, and then I move and try to do my best.
Great.
And try again, because you never know if the right time it's now on then. But I try it until I find the right results.
Sure, sure. What can you say about how we view progress? So now that we are moving towards a second phase of businesses are opening, people are having to reinvent themselves, businesses are having to reinvent themselves. What can you say about progress? Where we go from here?
Yeah, we necessarily have to have a different thinking. We have to change our perspective and our way to think that still that are we have until now. It's very important to reinvent ourselves and to focus on how we can make better our present. So focus on what we have now. Most of the time people focus on the past and on what they had before, but it's not useful. It's like you see the reflection of on your past.
Like looking in the rear view mirror in your car.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
continuing to look at the past and look backwards instead of looking forwards.
Exactly right, that. And this doesn't work. So you have to focus on the present. You have to reorganize your priority, and you have to analyze the situation, take some information to understand, and now what I can do now. If you, for example, have a work that doesn't work now, it's not useful now, and you can go on with your work, you have to reinvent something else if you want to stay alive, if you want to stay in progress. Otherwise you can feel paralyzed, and a lot of people stay in their home and despair and complain, and what I can do now. And it's very important to go out and try to find something else, to see something else. If you stay only on that, your mind blocked, paralyzed, and you don't see anything else.
In fact, I have heard suggestions from professionals on television telling people not to watch television too much, not to watch the news too much, because it's a constant reinforcement of information that can cause people to go into information overload. So the more negative information they receive, the more of a negative impact it has on their emotions and their behavior. What can you suggest to people who are interested in staying informed but want to be sure not to be over-informed?
This is an interesting question, Sylvia. There is a reason, because there is a lot of negative, not only in this situation. Of course, the information is important because they attract your attention, because it's not about you surviving. So usually all the information media use that to keep your attention. A lot of information can create a big confusion, because we live in a world with so much information. It creates so much confusion, and this can paralyze. Because you are unable to analyze what you can do. So a lot of information put you in a state of undecisionness. So it's important to inform yourself. It's important to know what happens, but take like some 20% to inform yourself and 80% to move, to go, to apply, to act, and to do something. Because if you stay in front of television and try to receive a lot of information, you block there, and your mind are like paralyzed, like I said before. So it's not useful. And remember, it's not important to be perfect. And it's important the progress. So try again, try more and more, repeat it until you find the right result, until you realize your vision. This is very important. Not a lot of people try to be perfect, but this impeded to realize the vision or to find the some result. And sometimes people are afraid to fall, but there is no falling, there is the result. So you have to find the right result for the situation.
In another conversation we had, you and I, you had mentioned that it's important to feel great about things.
Yes, yes. It's very important what you say to yourself, your inner talk. And instead of saying something like, I can manage, I can do it, I will do my best, it's very important to say, I feel great. Because if you say I feel great, you put yourself in a different mood, in a different frequency, and this allowed your mind to work differently. So I feel great. It's very important to keep a new frequency and to move from that. I feel great.
I feel great. Well, thank you for that. I'm very happy to have had this opportunity to speak with you about how to change obstacles into opportunities. It's important for us to stay connected and have access to information that helps us come out of a difficult situation as a community. So I'd like to thank you for your contribution to assisting our community in staying positive and staying strong. Would you like to say some closing words?
Yeah, I want to resume a little bit just to be clear about what's important in that situation when you face a new obstacles. It's very important to find a new perspective, think different. It's very important to act and move from there, and just be in contact with your inner power, because you're a unique being and you have unique desire, and you have the right to realize yourself and to give to the world your best version of yourself. So it's very important that you know that. And it's very important you feel great. And thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you again, Stella, for giving me the opportunity to engage you in this interesting conversation. I want to invite our members and guests and friends who see this video to write to us and perhaps ask for maybe suggestions on topics they might be interested in hearing about.
Yeah, we can create a laboratory to practice a little bit these topics, because it's very important to practice. The practice is very important, and to improve this knowledge and to have
And
more
dialogue.
Exactly. This help a lot in dialogue and confrontation and communication.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I do hope to hear from our community, and I look forward to having an opportunity to speak with you again in the future. Thank you again, Stella.
Thank you. Stay safe and
Stay strong. Bye-bye.
bye.